Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve? Feeling a bit...
I feel healthy.
Yeah, we're all feeling healthy, but it's a bit disturbing. We're going to talk about the outbreak of the coronavirus. If I pronounced that right. If we get that wrong, or I get that wrong, that's probably just because my brain isn't quite got the terminology right.
Coronavirus, Ben.
Just like the beer, right? And I'm sure they're I'm sure they're happy about the the tie-in with the name. So obviously, it's caused a lot of concern. Whenever one of these things happens, there's images of the apocalypse and that sort of, that doomsday scenario when that a lethal virus gets out from somewhere, spreads everywhere, and could cause massive damage to us as a species. But obviously, it's hasn't got to that level yet. But it has been a cause for concern. And just on in terms of Australia, as of what are we? We're 1st of February today. It actually says in the release today that there's been 9 cases here in Australia. And overall, 9,830 confirmed cases internationally and 213 deaths, so a 2.17% fatality rate. And what's it's, I don't know, maybe as a more macro thing, like I don't know if it's a case of more of these things coming out or whatever. We all remember SARS from a few years ago, kind of, scared some people, and there's a bit of a hysteria actually going on at the moment. So there was that story the other day of the Tiger Airways flight where there was one person confirmed that was on there, and then that release that went out on TV saying anyone on this flight, probably needs to be checked out. Here it's probably not as widespread because it's obviously not as many cases, but obviously the epicentre of it in China, where they've literally shut down Wuhan to surrounding cities, quarantined it all, and you got scenes of people trying to get out while they still can and all that sort of thing. Have you got any thoughts about any of that in terms of just how we respond, and the sort of place in all this?
Firstly, what I think has been done really poorly has been the media. Just tell everyone to take a chill pill. Okay, so like in terms of viruses, you've just given the stats. Only 2% of people die. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is it doesn't appear to be highly contagious. So there's a thing called the R number, which is the rate at which it can spread from individual to individual. So basically, if the number's under 1, that means the virus will die out very quickly because it won't transfer between people. Above 1, it means that on average, every person with coronavirus will give it to one other person. If the number was 2, it'd be 2 people. If the number was 4, it'd be 4 people, in which case then that's very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
So the number appears low and fatality seems low. What has scared the authorities about this one is that people who do not show any symptoms can be infected.
Yeah.
That's what's scary about it, because that means that you can walk through airport security, they can put temperature monitors on you, all sorts of things. You can be spreading the disease and not show any sign. And that's what's scary about it. But the actual virus itself, in terms of like how threatening it is, actually tends to be, thankfully, on the low end of the scale. Now, obviously, people are dying. This is a very serious situation. But if this was a really terrifying virus, it would be spreading a lot more quickly and a lot more people would be dying.
We were talking just before we got on, just more of on a technical aspect of how it's being described as just a straight-up coronavirus, when when actually, and this is the only bee I've got in my bonnet, is that that name actually refers to a family of viruses as opposed to a specific one. Now, obviously, this is another strain of one of those viruses, but it does have that official sort of separate designation as a novel coronavirus. And I found that interesting compared to, say, something you're saying MERS and SARS that actually have or did have specific names attached to them to, I guess, differentiate them from whatever other viruses.
It's hard to know why that's happened. Maybe there's been some sort of, inquiry in the past that giving the viruses names like that attach them to regions or ethnic populations or something like that. So maybe they're trying to go more general. But I think the good thing about calling it coronavirus is it's no different to the influenza virus. We're all familiar with influenza, and there are different strains every year. It mutates and it's different, and sometimes we do get very serious flus that kill people.
Particularly if you get people that are more susceptible, so they've got weaker immune systems, etc., etc.
Exactly. But to put the coronavirus in perspective, the deadliest flu ever recorded so far was in 1918, and that killed 20 million people in a single year. So that's how bad a virus can be. And the thing is, the coronavirus is quite a normal virus or group of viruses that exist in your nose, in your throat, and in your lungs. And obviously they cause problems, but, more along the lines of a cold. The same way you can have a light flu or you can have a very heavy flu. If there is a big mutation, like the 1918 influenza strain, then you can have really serious implications. And that's why everyone's so concerned about this particular strain.
Yeah.
However, as I said before, in reality, it's not as dangerous as it could be. It could be a lot more dangerous. So that's something to be thankful for, and that's something for us all to be mindful of.
Is that like a combination of, apart from the nature of the virus, but also the response to it, in the sense that WHO, World Health Organization, etc., there are people that are actively committed their careers, so to speak, to seeking out, searching and heading off this sort of thing, and it's not a question of winning the battle, it's just a question of eternal vigilance when it comes to these things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're much better prepared for these things now, and I think it's a real credit to the Australian scientists who isolated the virus, and now they've sequenced it, which means we can now get synthetic vaccines will be likely a lot more quickly. And of course, that then is a very powerful way to stop the spread. Unfortunately, for those who have already been exposed to it or might be in an area where the virus is active, there's no other way to do things here except to wait it out.
Yeah.
But of course, you would remember, as we started off saying, this isn't a hugely contagious virus. So you could actually shut this virus down just by avoiding contact with other humans. So, okay, you have to lay low at home for a week. It appears this virus doesn't travel really well through the air. So it probably would require direct touch or really close contact.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be really, really virulent. So, this may well be a great learning experience for all of us. It's, just be a bit more careful, maybe spend a week, just taking it easy.
Yeah.
But it's not,
a lot of the official
record. Not a Hollywood movie yet.
No, it's not Outbreak from, when was that, 91 or 92? That one came out. The other thing is, I think a lot of the official sort of statements that have come out from governments, etc., is that I think it's a 14-day period to sort of lock yourself away if you're exhibiting symptoms or whatever, which seems to be sound advice, like how you were saying. Just on another point, I guess... and
go and get help. If you've got symptoms, go and get help,
Exactly. Yes. I mean, isn't that sort of par for the course for any time you're in a bit of trouble?
This is the thing. The more hysteria there is, though, some people might just try and wait it out, which will be okay, apparently, for 97% of people. But if you're one of the 3%,
yeah,
it might not be such a good strategy.
Actually, hysteria is a good word to touch on. Just some other minor stories attached to it about, face masks running off the shelves. And particularly in China, apparently, there's like a real run on all of those, and trying to source as many as possible, and thinking that may potentially help if they get the right face mask or whatever. And the irony being is that there's stores in Australia now where they're stores are putting limits on how much can be purchased. But the other thing that was ironic, I guess, is that we just went through, and still, I guess, are going through a really severe bushfire season where those face masks are probably required to block out other things as well. And people's reactions in these situations are just you got to shake your head sometimes.
Well, I'll give everyone a tip on face masks. They're probably not that good at stopping you getting the virus, but they're excellent at stopping you giving it to someone else. So I'm all for them.
Oh, absolutely. So if you walk into a room and everyone's wearing a face mask, you're feeling safe? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's right. Like, they're less likely to give it to you. But the irony is that if you've got it, even if they're wearing a face mask and you're not wearing a face mask, then there's a fair chance you still get it across to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to remember. SARS was obviously the one that I remember the most in recent years. Being, I think it didn't last a year. I don't think in terms of turnaround. But is that largely because of I don't know if there's any expectation whether this one will have the same sort of trajectory, but it seems like that might be potentially a guidepost to see how it actually goes.
Well, I think the fact is that if this was, although, I mean, it's a pretty serious situation now, but I don't think that, I don't know, I wouldn't know how to predict this, but it doesn't seem that contagious. If you can imagine going back to that R number, if every person with it infected 2 other people, you can imagine how exponentially quickly that would grow. And this seems to be less than 2. So it could get quite bad, because that means if 10,000 people have it, potentially 20,000 people have it. Yeah. And then potentially 40,000. But that's a lot better than 10,000 to, 40,000 to 160,000, for instance.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Hopefully, also with the vaccine coming, and people are aware now, and hopefully getting treatment if they have symptoms, hopefully we can slow it down, and then it will die out.
And just finally, I wanted to touch on impacts. So you've got, people, I guess, reconsidering their need to travel, but then it's going all the way to the top of, like I believe the US put out a travel alert, do not travel to China, and then China gets upset because it's like an unfair travel advisory, and then there's all this knock-on effect and toing and froing and arguments and whatever, and it's just unfortunate that it's another different level, not hysteria, but just the way they bounce off each other.
Well, the thing is that these situations occur. They have to issue a travel warning, because if they didn't issue a travel warning and you went and you got it and you died, they'd be liable. Probably, I don't know how it works in the States, but I'm sure somebody could sue. Yeah. So the safest thing is to say don't go at all. Yeah. Once again, if it was as contagious, say, as the common cold or a flu or something like that, then maybe you would say don't travel, but it appears to be less than that. Yeah. So I wouldn't actually be so scared about travelling somewhere, apart from one thing, and this is the really big problem, is that the plane is where you're going to catch it. Yeah. If somebody on a plane is...
It's a nice little incubation machine right there.
Exactly. They only change 5% of the air every hour or something that is actually the real danger, is actually on the airline.
Yeah.
And not so much probably if you go to a city. So, but probably potentially more because it originated in a seafood market. So for some reason, there's a little hotspot there.
Yeah, exactly. I guess
don't go to the seafood market.
Catch a boat or drive or catch a train or something instead. All right, Steve. We might wrap it up there, and I guess we might touch on it in a future episode, depending on how the updates go, and hopefully it kind of fizzles out at some point. You would hope.
You would hope that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so don't forget our website, SciTechCulture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube, Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds, download us to your devices, listen to us wherever you go. And we greatly appreciate your visits to the website and hope you enjoy all the content there. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.